What makes a Western so controversial that it's banned, protested, or whispered about decades later? Is it sex, violence, race, or the way these movies dared to show America as it really was, not how we wished it had been? From Howard Hughes's War on Censors to blood-soaked revolutions that rattled the world, these are the films that broke every rule and left audiences stunned, outraged, or forever changed. Saddle up as we ride through the 15 most controversial Westerns ever made, each one more jaw-dropping than the last. Ready for a showdown? The Outlaw, 1943/1946. Let's start with the movie that practically invented Hollywood controversy, The Outlaw. In a world where even a peak of ankle could raise eyebrows, Howard Hughes decided to introduce America to Jane Russell's cleavage, and he wasn't subtle about it. This wasn't just a Western, it was a PR campaign disguised as a shoot-'em-up. Hughes engineered a cantilevered bra, plastered Russell's image across billboards, and dared censors to do something about it. And they did. Religious groups called for bans, state censors refused it, the MPAA wouldn't give it a seal, and Hughes waged war with the press. The movie was supposed to be about Billy the Kid and Doc Holliday, but let's be honest, nobody bought a ticket for the plot. It was all about Jane Russell, who overnight became the poster girl for Hollywood indecency. When it finally got a release in 1946, the scandal had already made it a must-see. Theaters pulled it, Catholic groups protested, and even a Maryland judge declared Russell's figure a thunderstorm over a summer landscape. Hughes didn't care. He leaned in, using every trick in the book to keep the buzz alive. The Outlaw might seem tame now, but back then it was ground zero for debates about sex, censorship, and who got to decide what America watched. Decades later, it's a masterclass in how controversy can turn a middling Western into box office gold, and how one bra changed film history forever. Duel in the Sun, 1946. Nicknamed Lust in the Dust, Duel in the Sun is what happens when you take classic Hollywood melodrama, crank up the heat, and toss in every taboo you can find. Jennifer Jones plays Pearl, a mixed-race orphan shipped off to a Texas ranch run by a racist patriarch. Gregory Peck, usually the upright hero, plays the degenerate younger son who can't keep his hands off her. Their relationship is a tangle of violence, lust, and melodrama, all set under the blazing desert sun. This film did everything the Hays Code told movies not to do: interracial relationships, sexual assault, and unchecked desire. The censors demanded cuts. Religious groups were furious. Pearl's seduction and repeated assaults by Peck's character sent critics into a frenzy, and for good reason. Duel in the Sun pushed boundaries that wouldn't be crossed again for decades. There's no hero here, only victims and villains. The studio had to hack the movie to pieces just to get it released, and even then, it was banned in places, protested elsewhere, and denounced from pulpits across America. Lust in the Dust became a warning, not a compliment. Yet for all its sins, Duel in the Sun remains a fever dream, a film that dares you to look away, but won't let you. It's Hollywood excess at its most dangerous, and it's still one of the wildest rides the Western genre ever produced. The Oxbow Incident, 1943. Looking for a Western with no easy heroes, no feel-good ending, and a gut punch of social commentary? The Oxbow Incident is your movie. Forget about good guys in white hats and bad guys in black. This is the story of what happens when a mob decides it doesn't need the law. Henry Fonda leads a posse out to catch cattle rustlers, but the group quickly turns into a lynch mob, driven by fear, suspicion, and a thirst for justice. They catch 3 men, give them a sham trial under a gnarled tree, and hang them. The twist? They were innocent. The real killer is revealed after it's too late. The message isn't subtle. One bad decision, fueled by mob mentality, can ruin lives and stain a whole community. Released in 1943, at the height of World War II, this was the opposite of the patriotic movies America wanted. It tanked at the box office, faced censorship, and left critics unsettled. Audiences didn't want to see themselves as the villains, and the Oxbow Incident held up a mirror anyway. Over time, it's become a classic for its honesty, one of the earliest Westerns to tackle the dangers of groupthink and vigilante justice. No shootouts, no redemption, just the question: How far would you go if you thought no one would stop you? Johnny Guitar, 1954. If you thought Westerns were all about men, dust, and horses, Johnny Guitar is here to set the record straight by throwing the rulebook out the window. Joan Crawford stars as Vienna, a saloon owner who doesn't just wear the pants, she owns the whole town. Her rival? Emma Small, a prim, venomous woman who wants Vienna gone. The tension between these two simmers hotter than the Nevada desert. Beneath the surface, Johnny Guitar is loaded with subtext, gender-bending, power plays, and what critics now recognize as a fierce, coded queer romance. Hollywood didn't know what to do with it. Censors hacked at it, critics rolled their eyes, and American audiences were baffled. Meanwhile, in France, the film was hailed as a work of genius, proving that sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes to see what's revolutionary. The movie's wild colors, melodrama, and almost surreal dialogue turned it into a cult classic, beloved by feminists, queer viewers, and anyone who likes their westerns with a side of chaos. Joan Crawford battled her co-stars on set and on screen, cementing her legend as the toughest woman in Hollywood. Today, Johnny Guitar stands as proof that the West wasn't just won by men with guns, but by women with grit, style, and a refusal to play by the rules. Shane, 1953. Shane isn't just a movie, it's the Western that haunts your childhood. The image is iconic, a lone gunman riding away while a boy cries out his name in vain. But under all that nostalgia is a film that rattled censors, critics, and the very idea of what a Western could say. The violence in Shane isn't clean or heroic. It's loud, shocking, and final. Every gunshot is a thunderclap. Every death matters. The film asks if you can ever really escape the cycle of violence, or if heroes like Shane are doomed to wander forever, carrying the stain of every man they've killed. The chemistry between Shane and Marion, the wife of the farmer he helps, is just ambiguous enough to set tongues wagging. At the time, censors were worried about its impact on children, and religious groups wrung their hands about the morality of the story. Is Shane saving the West, or making it worse? The ambiguity was the point. Generations have argued whether the film celebrates or condemns violence. What's certain is that it changed the genre forever, giving us a cowboy who's less John Wayne and more Hamlet, riding out of our lives and into legend. The Searchers, 1956. You think John Wayne is always the hero? Think again. The Searchers is Wayne at his most complex, playing Ethan Edwards, a man who might save his niece or kill her. This is not the clean-cut West of old. Instead, Ford's masterpiece dives into obsession, racism, and what happens when hatred warps everything it touches. The depiction of Native Americans is troubling by today's standards, and even in its time, the film's violence and its lead character's bigotry made some viewers squirm. Is Ford criticizing Ethan, or is he letting him off the hook? Critics and scholars still argue. The film doesn't provide easy answers. The ending, with Ethan framed in a doorway, part of the family, but not welcome inside, is one of the most powerful images in movie history. When The Searchers premiered, audiences didn't know what to think. It's now hailed as a towering achievement, studied for its beauty and condemned for its blind spots. The debate is the point. It's a Western that forces you to ask, what if the hero is the real danger? The man who shot Liberty Valance, 1962. Sometimes the legend really is better than the truth. John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is all about the stories we tell ourselves, about who's a hero, who's a villain, and what really happened. Jimmy Stewart plays Ransom Stoddard, a mild-mannered lawyer whose reputation is built on the belief that he shot the notorious outlaw Liberty Valance. The catch? He didn't. It was John Wayne's Tom Doniphan who pulled the trigger. The town prefers the legend to the messy truth, and the film makes you question every myth you've ever believed about the West. Critics were baffled. Audiences expected another gunslinging epic, and instead got a meditation on PR, politics, and the rewriting of history. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend, says the local newspaper man. And just like that, the movie skewers the whole genre. This was a Western that dared to say history is written by the winners, and sometimes the winners are liars. It's a film about regret, lost love, and how truth can vanish under a mountain of legend. Uncomfortable in its own way, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is now seen as one of the greatest deconstructions of the American myth. A Man Called Horse, 1970. Before Dances with Wolves ever dreamed of the white savior narrative, there was A Man Called Horse. Richard Harris stars as an Englishman who's captured by the Sioux, tortured, and eventually assimilated into their culture. After surviving a brutal, infamous initiation with eagle claws and chest piercings. It's gory, dramatic, and guaranteed to make you flinch. The controversy came fast and furious. Native American critics slammed it for inventing customs and casting white actors in native roles. The American Indian movement staged boycotts, picketed premieres, and called out the film for reducing indigenous life to exotic spectacle. The controversy didn't hurt the box office, though. The film was a hit, spawning sequels, and even more protests. A Man Called Horse still provokes debate. Is it an honest attempt to depict native culture, or just another fantasy from a white perspective? Its legacy is messy, but the questions it raises about identity, respect, and cultural appropriation are as urgent now as they were then. Five Savage Men, 1971. If you think all controversial westerns are from Hollywood's golden age, Five Savage Men is here to prove otherwise. This grindhouse nightmare is infamous for pushing every boundary. Graphic sexual assault, unflinching violence, and a plot that feels more like a revenge horror film than anything John Wayne would ever touch. The film opens with a stagecoach massacre, followed by the brutalization of its young female survivor, played by Michelle Carey. She's rescued by an Apache warrior, but the partnership that follows is a raw, angry answer to every sanitized Western revenge tale. There's no heroism, only survival and fury. Critics didn't know what to do with it. The audience were appalled. The film was buried for years, showing up in midnight screenings and exploitation festivals. If you want a Western that will genuinely unsettle you, Five Savage Men is the one. It's a testament to how far the genre could fall, or how honest it could get, depending on your point of view. Navajo Joe, 1966. Take one part spaghetti Western, one part Hollywood tone deafness, and what do you get? Navajo Joe. Burt Reynolds, not remotely Native American, stars in brownface as a Navajo avenger hunting down scalp hunters. The result is uncomfortable at best, and downright offensive at worst. Even Reynolds hated it, later joking that the only people who saw the movie were prisoners and airline passengers, because they couldn't leave. The film's portrayal of Native Americans is a grab bag of stereotypes, and the casting was widely criticized, even in its own time. The story? Standard revenge plot, but with Reynolds in a Japanese slingshot and a wig, looking like he wandered in from the wrong set. Despite the controversy, Navajo Joe has developed a strange cult following. Tarantino loves it for the music, if nothing else. But for everyone else, it's a cautionary tale. Representation matters, and bad casting is forever. Django, 1966. Before Tarantino turned the name into a meme, the original Django was one of the most banned films in Europe. Franco Nero plays a coffin-dragging anti-hero in a world so grim, so muddy, and so blood-soaked, it made Clint Eastwood look like a choir boy. The violence is legendary. Bodies pile up by the dozen, machine guns mow down armies, and the mud never seems to dry. When the film came out, Italian censors slapped it with an 18+ rating. The British Board of Film Censors refused to classify it at all, and in America, it bounced around the drive-in circuit before anyone dared to put it in regular theaters. But the style was undeniable. Django is fast, brutal, and more nihilistic than anything that came before. It sparked dozens of unofficial sequels, rip-offs, and, eventually, homage. If you like your westerns with grit and a body count, Django is where it all began. Controversial then, influential forever. Sergeant Rutledge, 1960. Long before Black Panther, there was Sergeant Rutledge, a black hero in a mainstream Hollywood Western. Directed by John Ford, it tells the story of a black Union soldier on trial for murder and rape, a charge loaded with racial prejudice in both the film and the world outside the theater. Woody Strode's performance is magnetic, dignified, and powerful. Released before the Civil Rights Act, the film was a massive gamble. Southern theaters refused to show it, and many critics were uncomfortable with the way it addressed race, prejudice, and justice. Ford, guilty of perpetuating racist tropes in earlier films, tried to set the record straight, but controversy dogged the movie from script to screen. Today, Sergeant Rutledge is seen as ahead of its time, a movie that tried to grapple with America's original sin long before Hollywood was ready. Its legacy? Complicated, but important. The Wild Bunch, 1969. If the outlaw pushed boundaries with cleavage, the Wild Bunch obliterated them with bullets. Sam Peckinpah's masterpiece is all slow-motion bloodbaths, moral ambiguity, and death with a capital D. When it premiered, audiences were not ready. The violence was unprecedented, bodies torn apart, squibs exploding like 4th of July firecrackers. The movie got slapped with an NC-17 before R was even a thing. Critics called it depraved, yet filmmakers called it genius. The cast themselves admitted to being shaken by what they were filming. The movie's message? Violence isn't fun, and the West wasn't pretty. Peckinpah's insistence on showing blood and pain was his way of saying, enough with the hero worship. The Wild Bunch changed Hollywood overnight. Suddenly, you couldn't pretend that dying in a Western was a clean, noble thing. The body count was high, but the film's influence was even higher. Today, it's legendary, for the right and wrong reasons. High Noon, 1952. This one's more than just a ticking clock. It's a Molotov cocktail tossed into the politics of 1950s Hollywood. Marshal Will Kane tries to rally a town against a gang of killers, only to find everyone too scared or too cowardly to help. It's a nerve-wracking countdown, but what really set people off was the subtext. Screenwriter Carl Foreman was blacklisted in the Red Scare, and the film is a not-so-subtle dig at people who turn their backs on principle. John Wayne called it the most un-American thing I've ever seen, and led the charge against Foreman. The movie was banned in some countries, derided in others, and became an allegory for the McCarthy witch hunts. But it also won Oscars, and is still one of the most analyzed Westerns of all time. Sometimes, standing alone is the bravest and most controversial thing you can do. Triumphs of A Man Called Horse, 1983. By the time the third film in the A Man Called Horse trilogy rolled around, the biggest controversy wasn't on screen, it was behind the scenes. Triumphs of A Man Called Horse was filmed without American Humane Association oversight. Horses died during production, and the news sparked a national and international outcry. Animal rights groups staged protests and called for boycotts, turning what could have been a forgettable sequel into a symbol of Hollywood's dark side. The film's story, already weighed down by the white savior narrative and outdated stereotypes, was overshadowed by the outrage over animal cruelty. Studios scrambled to clean up the mess, but the damage was done. The controversy led to stricter enforcement of animal safety in movies and stained the legacy of the Horse trilogy forever. If you want to know how far a film can fall out of favor, look no further. Sometimes the real drama isn't on the screen, it's on the set. So there you have it, 15 Westerns that shook Hollywood, changed history, and forced audiences to look at the West and themselves a little differently. These films weren't just entertainment, they were cultural earthquakes, raising questions we're still debating today. Which of these legendary movies shocked you the most? Did we miss your favorite scandalous Western? Let us know in the comments below. If you loved this wild ride through cinema's most forbidden frontiers, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into movie history. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the real drama isn't on the screen, but in the world these films left behind. See you at the next showdown.